It's my, another one. Just kidding, thank you. It's my pleasure to introduce one of our own this morning, a member of our community. After living a faithfully devoted life in a conservative religion, Murphy experienced in her 30s a crisis of faith. In this presentation, she will explore and describe the initial impacts of doubt, the changing mindset and worldview that comes through loss of faith, and the ways that we, on the outside, can support and help those deconstructing their own systems of belief, whatever those are, in self-directed and empowering ways. Murphy was born and raised in Salt Lake City, Utah. It's a big clue. And has lived the last 2.5 years in Missouri. Lucky us. After working as a social worker in Utah for several years, she took time off to raise 3 children and several cats, and a mother. Currently, she is employed full-time behind the front desk of her local middle school while simultaneously working toward her master's in education in hopes that she can eventually graduate to her own classroom to teach teenagers about the Constitution or the importance of water resources for human settlement. Excellent. Please join me in welcoming Murphy Lisch.
Thank you, everyone. I'm just kidding. Man, that was a long intro. This is my first time presenting about this issue, so I hope everyone's super patient with me, and I couldn't have asked for a better group because I actually like everyone here, and I know that you guys are cool, and you're not going to throw things at me. So today's topic, I am talking about when certainty cracks. And so what is certainty? It's when you think that you know something, right? Is there anything that we've ever been certain about in our lives?
Death and taxes, right?
Like death and taxes. And that's the end. No, I'm just kidding. So certainty is something that we all have in varying degrees about different, topics or things that we feel strongly about, right? What I'm talking about today in particular is how certain I was of my religious beliefs, of my faith, of my God, of what I believed. But I want you to please think laterally and say, certainty can be about anything. As I could be really, really certain about, my political party. I could be really certain about country music. There's things that people feel certain about and that we maybe shouldn't be so certain about it. So for the first example, I wanted to talk about that song. So when she says that she saw her reflection in snow-covered hills that actually would not have been a landslide, that would have been an avalanche, right? But as if I'm going to be all snarky about what I know versus what she knows, I'm going to miss the point of the song, right? So landslide, I love that I have an in and that I can make people play the songs I want. Landslide was one of my biggest deconstruction songs. Deconstruction is when you have that settled what you know and it all breaks apart, right? So you're not certain anymore. So for me, Landslide was a huge song. That was the one that I listened to in the car, and I had good cry sessions. Like, Landslide was my song for deconstruction. And as if I would focus on the things that I'm certain of about avalanches versus landslides, you miss the beauty of it. And I'm just saying is that I want us to be a little open-minded about the things that we think we know and understand that there's beauty to be found everywhere, in everybody and everything. So I'm going to talk a lot about me. So first, I'm throwing out this poem. It's Judge Softly by Mary Lathrap. Good luck reading that. That's real small. But the term, to walk a mile in his shoes. It originated with Mary Lathrap. She wrote this poem where it's walk a mile in his moccasins, but we have incorporated that into just our everyday language about walking a mile in people's shoes. I also love the George R.R. Martin quote, "Nobody is a villain in their own story." So, practicing radical empathy, we'll get started. Radical empathy? This is where we just realize that nobody's the bad guy. Okay. Certainty. I already talked a little about this briefly. Certainty is a firm conviction that something is true. So, in the middle, there's a picture of my 2 boys. Those are my kiddos sitting in front of Salt Lake City Temple. Because I was a Mormon. I had all the Mormon things. I did it all, you know. So if there's a Mormon question you have, I would be happy to answer that for you. I loved the truth. I loved my church. You know, as I gave my life for that church, okay? There's a few ex-Mormons in the crowd who are like, uh-huh. And so, yeah, you guys get it. But I gave everything for this. I gave everything that I thought, did, said, wore, where I went for my entire life. My money, my mom made sure that I pointed that out. Yep, they got my money too. Wow. I served a mission for my church out of my own pocket, because that's what we do. I remember on my mission, I actually sang this song, "Oh, Say What Is Truth," and to me, I thought, this is the most beautiful thing, is to teach people the truth about the restored gospel of Jesus Christ. Isn't that beautiful? Did you all feel that the same way that I felt? Just kidding. Please don't. So, I have a couple quotes. The truth is more important than the facts. So that was how I lived my life. Because the truth was what I had been taught, obviously, and anything that didn't agree with what I knew to be true didn't matter, right? And I think that a lot of people feel that way, right? So there's a Bruce R. McConkie quote. Bruce R. McConkie was a very famous Mormon apostle. He said, "There's no such thing as neutrality where the gospel is concerned." And that was a big deal for me. My mom would happily tell you is that growing up, R. McConkie was added onto my first name as a nickname in our ward, which is like our local church. Because I didn't take a middle ground. It was always like, it's black or white, it's true or it's not, isn't it? And I thought that was nice. So who the heck am I? So that's me. So I'm a 7th generation Mormon. So my family was there in the very beginning. Top right, left? The right, left. You know what I'm saying? That guy up there? That's my great grandfather. And he was best friends with the prophet Joseph Smith. He paid Joseph Smith money to help Joseph Smith finish translating the Book of Mormon. And I have a black dog there because that's important, because my great-great-great-great-grandfather sacrificed his black dog in a witchcraft ceremony with Joseph Smith to help him find buried treasure on his property. You guys, it's awesome. And that's his house, and it's currently owned by the Mormon Church, or the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so my family was there in the very beginning. There are books about us. And this lovely, happy gentleman underneath the picture of me is my great-great-great-grandfather, Freeborn DeMille. And just to give you a little glimpse into what it's like to be raised in a Mormon family, my great-great-great-grandfather, I believe in his 70s or 80s, took a 14-year-old wife. So, and she was, I think, his 3rd or 4th. So, to be raised Mormon is to come from a family with some issues. So, I know you're probably like, oh, that was like decades ago. For sure, that doesn't bug you anymore, but it does. So, I know there's, inherited trauma through families, intergenerational, just the values that people teach. Mormons, bless them, have a really hard time. But, so, that's the family that I was coming from. I also point out that I was born in Hinckley era Mormonism. So that doesn't mean anything to you, but it means things to Mormons. So Gordon B. Hinckley, that lovely gentleman there, the bigger one, because Bruce R. McConkie is smaller next to him, but Gordon B. Hinckley, the big one, he was the prophet in my childhood. He was the prophet when I was growing up. And I would say that my generation of Mormons was probably the last generation of Mormons where we were really taught to obey rules. You know, that rules were a big deal, and that we followed the rules, and we did everything right. Here's a list of things that there's rules about, right? And so For the Strength of the Youth pamphlet, that is a pamphlet that came out when I was a youth, and we studied it in church. We went over the lessons, we went over the things that it taught, and there were rules about everything. Rules about education, which, I mean, for women, it's like, don't worry about it. Just find yourself a nice man. Dress and appearance. We had a prophet say that if we women were to show our shoulders, I won't show you my shoulder. I know you guys were scared, but if we were to show our shoulders, we would become walking pornography. So I'm just saying, we had rules about it all. Entertainment and media, no rated R's, nothing. If you can think of something you could have a rule about, we had a rule about it. So, but we were happy. Heather, are you in that picture?
Yeah, I'm next to you.
There's my friend Heather. She's here too. Isn't that good? All right. Makes me happy. But it was community. And so while we were rigid and we were grumpy and weird and a peculiar people, quote unquote, we were happy. So here's just pictures from my life, because sometimes I just like to brag. This is the Virtuous Woman scriptures. I don't know if you guys have read that. I cross-stitched it. It's all about how important it is to be a good woman and to take care of your home with all the bread and stuff, because that's what you're supposed to do. So there's me as a missionary, just going to BYU. The top right photo, I used to think that I looked quite like a rebel in that photo because I was wearing shorts. You guys, I don't know if you can see that those shorts go all the way down to my knees. And I was like, I was really bending the rules, you guys, because you're not supposed to wear shorts at our college. Well, you can now, probably. I don't know. Anyway, so I was doing Mormonism right. I did it and I loved it. I loved it. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the knowledge base that people have when they're raised as a Mormon, okay? So I had a video. I'm not sure we're going to play it. It's that embedded box. So Mormons are kind of limited in what they know, right? So when you're raised in a social network where you're supposed to believe certain things and do certain things, you kind of don't know anything outside of that, right? So first off, I still have not seen this scene from the Titanic. So that feels improper to just watch Titanic so I can see. That feels wrong, Jill. So, just saying, I grew up with a mom who was a big utilizer of the pillow. Is that my mom liked to watch movies, and so we watched a lot of movies that my friends wouldn't even watch. But my mom was good. She knew what made a movie bad and what made a movie good. And so she would take the pillow off the couch and hold it in front of the screen and hit fast forward and do the whole thing. It was fantastic. And so this was a scene that she fast forwarded through. Thank you, Mom. Thank God that I didn't have to see a woman. Whew. So that's good. There's also a scene in What's Eating Gilbert Grape. I don't know what happened, but she came onto the Johnny Depp character pretty strong, I'm imagining. I still don't know what that scene was about. Thanks, Mom, for protecting me. So, there's things Mormons just don't know. Game of Thrones, absolutely not. They don't know. But there are things that they do know, like Disney. Never get into a trivia competition with a Mormon about Disney. You will lose. These bottom two pictures I have as, again, just to talk about the things that you might not even realize the Mormons don't understand. So, I've got this guy with the beer bottle, right? It's beer? It's wine. It's probably wine. Yeah, it's things Mormons don't know. He's super drunk. So I didn't know how much alcohol made someone sick. I don't know what drunkenness looks like for people, stereotypically. For me, I remember I was meeting, my ex-father-in-law, and he had a beer. Oh my gosh, out at lunch with us, and he had a beer. And then he drove us home, and I was so mad. I was like, this man is drunk driving, and we are in the car, and we are complicit. And he was not drunk. He'd had like the light beer. I don't know. It wasn't a big deal. But as a Mormon, I felt like this man's surely drunk. This is what drunk looks like, and he's driving. It was terrifying. But it's because I didn't know. I wasn't around this. This is what my life was. I also have this man looking like he thinks that woman is beautiful, obviously. Mormons are really weird about sex. Sorry, I'm going to say it. So remember the walking pornography thing that I taught you? That we were walking porn if we showed our shoulders? So Mormons have this kind of belief that men can't help themselves. Bless men. Men have to have the priesthood because they're not as righteous as the women. As the women don't need leadership roles or the priesthood power of the Lord because they're already righteous enough. Is that there was kind of an understanding among women that it's like, well, the men can't help themselves. So just don't wear the tight pants. They can't help themselves. And you'll become pornography. So it's just interesting. And then I have just this gal standing up there on her own because Mormons also don't know what women can be. That's been one of the biggest issues for me. With deconstruction is I have like no goals for myself. What do I want? What do I want to become? What's important to me? Still figuring that out, right? Limited knowledge.
Would you rather go to war or have a sip of coffee?
Definitely war.
Name 3 alcoholic beverages.
Tequila.
Would you rather have a sip of alcohol or unalive a puppy?
I mean, I've eaten dog before.
So, like that, I played, I'm so happy. So, that's just, like, there's a TikTok channel just making fun of going to BYU and interviewing Mormons and just asking them questions and seeing the things that they're going to say. Because the things that they will say. Bill, I'm a little bit worried if I hit next, it's just going to play the video again.
Let's see what happens.
Oh, it worked! Okay, I do speak technology. Okay, so here's a picture about sins. There's women wearing leggings, obviously. That was a big sin in my book. There's 2 women. They probably kiss because they're getting married. So I'm just saying that's a sin. That guy drinking, he's a sin. That's a picture of my grandma and grandpa. They were not Mormon. I know. So good luck to them in heaven. Hopefully they can accept the gospel someday because they'll have to. Or I might not get to hang out with them anymore. They can be converted after they're dead. Yeah, there's a loophole for Mormons. Shh, don't tell them. Shh, we can make this work. Okay. So I'm going to tell you, my biggest regret, so everybody calm down. In the middle, I have a scripture, Isaiah 50:11. When I was in college, I was good friends with a boy named Jordan. Do you know Jordan? Oh, yeah. So Jordan was a lovely dude. He was, I think he had a position in the bishopric. He was just a nice guy. I'd go on dates, and if Jordan happened to be there, because as adults, we went on double dates. Keep things sacred and safe, so nobody kiss anybody, right? So I'd go on double dates with Jordan, and Jordan and I would just goof off. He was a brother. He was great. But then he came out as gay, and he left our school, and he moved to Salt Lake City, and you guys, he started dating men. It was just awful. Just kidding. That's sarcasm. But at the time, I thought that I was losing my brother. It felt like I was going to lose him to a life of sin. And so I actually wrote him a big, long note. I know, your face. So I wrote him a big, long note, and I quoted this scripture at him. This says, behold, all ye that kindle a fire, that compass yourselves about with sparks, walk in the light of your fire, and in the sparks that ye have kindled. This shall ye have of mine hand, if ye shall lie down in sorrow. I quoted that at my friend. You guys, I was a bad word. So, yeah. But I genuinely loved this boy. And he still talks to me to this day, you guys. So, like, because he knew. He was a Mormon too. But the things, the hideous things that you will do to people because you think that you have to, because you think it's true, because you're trying to help, right? So, I'm going to talk about the bite model. This is like my mom's favorite thing. So, the bite model put together by Steve Hassan. I think he pronounces it like an American, like Hassan. I don't know, Steve, but you should have gone by Hassan. But he wrote this bite model, and that it's used to show, he says, kindly methods used to control people by undue influence. This is a great way to recognize a cult. Is that you can find these groups by the way that they control people's behavior, the information that people receive, their thought processes, the ways that they think, emotions, the way that they control people's emotions, right? So I've thrown a bunch of stuff on the right-hand side just to show, you know, how the bite model applied to me when I was a Mormon, right? So I had that For the Strength of Youth pamphlet that told me I could only have one pair of earrings, right? And boys couldn't have any. And boys would talk to each other about how, like, ew, she has two, don't date her. She's a sinner already. So behavior, you have those rigid rules with social ostracism, obviously, as if you're not following the rules, your group's not going to take care of you, you're not going to be in. The only true church, that's talked about as just like a dependence and obedience thing. That's where I grabbed that. Is if you belong to the only true church, and you really think that you need that in order to get to heaven, you're not going to leave it, right? It's the only way you're going to, like, live happily ever after when you die. You're not going to leave it. If you genuinely believe that it's the only option, you stay, no matter what. Information. So different ways you can control information. In the church, anti-Mormon literature was a big, phrase that we would use. Pretty much anything was anti-Mormon literature if it was historical fact. But as if it wasn't published by the church, you were not really supposed to Google it. Don't do that. So there's a quote there by, he's next in line to be our prophet, actually, Oakes. He says, I suggest that research is not the answer to questions of faith and doubt. So he's like, don't read about it. Don't do that. That's not going to help. So thoughts, you get fear of the outside world. Mormons are taught, that you will be persecuted. You can just pretty much expect that everybody hates you and that they're all out to get you. Paranoia, for sure. Yeah, is that you just kind of expect that people are going to try and hurt you. And so is if somebody actually comes to you and they say, so guess what, you're in a cult, you're going to take that as persecution. You're not going to take that as like, maybe I should think about what they've said. You're going to think, nope, they're just persecuting me. Get it? Again, more thoughts, never good enough. They always told us, so the thought-stopping techniques, one of my favorite as a Mormon, they taught me as a missionary to say this, is if, anyone ever brought something up that you didn't have a good argument against, or as if they said something that you were like, I don't know what to say next, that you were to testify about how you feel. You're like, I know that the church is true. I can feel it in my heart. And that's just a thought-stopping technique because it stops you from thinking about what the person has just said. So if somebody said, your original prophet had sex with 40 women and the one was 14 years old, that seems to be a problem. You can stop that thought by saying, I've prayed about it and I know that Joseph Smith is a prophet of God. Thought stopping stops you from thinking, and they teach you how to do that to yourself. And you don't even realize you're doing it, but you do. Emotional, feeling chosen or special. Again, you're the chosen generation. There's scriptures, many are called, but few are chosen, because you're the special one, obviously. If I wasn't a Mormon, I would. This is me and Heather's thing. We went to college together, and we were good Mormons together, and one time we sat down and we were like, oh my gosh, if I wasn't a Mormon, I would probably be a serial killer. Right? It's like, just for fun. Because obviously if you're not Mormon, you don't have morals. You just kill people for fun. I don't know what you said you would do. Okay. But yeah, so it's just like, anyway.
Swear.
You probably swear. Shit. Okay. So, anyway. So now I'm going to talk to you about Dark Night of the Soul. Dark Night of the Soul originally is a religious concept. It's also something that Carl, what's his name? Carl Jung, Jung, psych guy, is that he wrote a bit about the Dark Night of the Soul. The journey of the Dark Night of the Soul is where we learn who we are without people telling us. That's a nice way of looking at it. So that's all really positive and stuff, but Dark Night of the Soul is where you lose yourself. It's where you don't know who you are or why you're here. Jung called it ego death. It's where you just lose it. You're like, I don't know what's going on. So, all my best poetry came out during my Dark Night of the Soul. It's great. I wrote that one on the right. Where you just, it's like, what's the point, right? I don't even know how to explain the Dark Night of the Soul, but it's like being adrift at sea. You just feel like, I got nothing. I don't even know why I'm here. Like, people consider suicide when they're going through their Dark Night of the Soul. I know that's something I've spoken with many ex-Mormons about, and many of us have those thoughts, like, what is the point? What is the point? Humans suck. I'm going to talk to you about reasons to leave. There's a lot. Just kidding. So when you're in a high control group, when you're in a group that teaches, truth, there's like 4 different reasons generally that people leave cults like this. First is reduced isolation. It's actually getting to know people who aren't Mormon. Like, believe it or not, like, you can be like, hey, she's not a serial killer. Sorry. Questioning the leader, that's when you're like, maybe we shouldn't have sex with 14-year-old little girls. I don't know, that seems wrong. Maybe that was wrong. This is questioning your leaders. Ethical concerns. So that's when they're saying, gay people can't go through the temple, aka in Mormon speech, that means like go to heaven. Like, so it's like, oh wow, that seems like a problem. Some people are able to get to that point. Think, wow, that seems problematic. Sometimes you can realize how you're being manipulated, So that would be gradual enlightenment. But some people leave suddenly. Some people, it's like, oh, your church has like $137 billion and they're still taking 10% of your income. Some people leave right then, and that happens real fast. They're like, oh, that's dishonest. Some people, it takes a long time. For me, it took a long time. It took me at least 5 years to really just get my way out. So I would say that I was part of that gradual. Why is it hard to leave? Social stigma, first off, everybody is Mormon. Your family's Mormon, your kids are Mormon, your grandparents were Mormon. Like, what are they going to think about me if I leave? They're going to think I am the whore of all the earth, right? Because you worry. Sunk cost fallacy, it's like I have spent 30 years of my life living for this. Maybe I don't believe it anymore, but it hasn't hurt me so far. So I'm just going to keep going down the road I'm on, right? So that's sunk cost. Fear of the unknown, genuinely just being like, maybe I will become a serial killer. You guys, you don't know. And then the unknown snowball effect of what could happen, if you do make those choices. This picture of me, I'm holding my 2 boys. I don't know if you guys can see my pornography shoulders. That was the day that I first went out in public with a tank top on. You guys, I felt naked. I felt like, you guys, neck comes to here. Like, I was so modest. So, but I felt naked, and I felt like everyone was watching me, and that everyone knew what a sinner I was, how weak I was.
Were you in Utah?
I was in Utah, yeah. So it's like I felt naked. It was awful. Then the next picture is my daughter before she was born, and that's what actually got me to leave. Because I did the whole gender reveal when you're pregnant, and they're like, it's a boy, it's a human, we hope. Mine was, it's a girl. And I was like, nope, that's it. I'm not doing that to a little girl. Absolutely not. I've been there. I could justify it for a boy, because a boy's like, oh yeah, Jesus loves you more because you're a boy. But I couldn't do that for a girl. I was like, absolutely not. I'm not raising my daughter like this because I know what this feels like. So that's how I got out. When you deconstruct, when you leave one of these high demand belief systems, you go through the stages of grief. I know that's like the number one thing that, sorry, I touched that. Okay. That's the number one thing that I've brought to people's attention. It's like people be like, I just don't understand. Like, my entire world is falling apart. Like, what do I do? It's like, you're going to go and study the grief cycle, because this is what's going to happen. Is you are going through grief. You're going to go through anger. You're going to go through depression. You're going to go through shock and disbelief. And sometimes you wake up one morning and you're like, I'm really happy. And then it's okay. It's all the stages of grief. They've said stages of grief don't go in order. They bounce around, right? So that's what going through deconstruction is like. It's people go through grief. Because it's grief, it's loss of who you are, loss of everything that you've had. So this is like my longest slide. When you lose everything that you believe, there's a lot that comes up. What is the point? It's a good one. Some things are positive. I know my friend said the voice of God was always just me. So when she had that, that thought or the good thing, and she said, oh, it's the Spirit of the Lord, has told me this. Guess what? It was just you, but it was you. Like, how cool is that? That thing that enlightened you was just you. Isn't that cool? So some people it's really empowering. My big one is that God is dead. That's like huge. That's Nietzsche too. But I remember this happened a few weeks ago. I was driving home from work, and God is dead. God died again. It happens sometimes. And so I was crying on my way home from work, and I got home, and I'm sad. My mom's with my kids, and she's like, what's wrong? I was like, Mom, God's dead. And she's like, isn't it wonderful? And I was like, no. So, because for me, God was always a positive. God was never like this big mean judge who's going to send you to hell. Because I was perfect and I didn't need to go to hell. Just kidding. So, but for me, God was always a positive. That God was protection, comfort, certainty. It was all the good stuff. And so to have God die on you was pretty rough. To be like, you know what? In the past, if bad things happened to me in my life, or if something uncertain happened, I could always comfort myself and be like, you know what? God will take care of me, because he always does. Good old God. And now it's horrifying, because it's like, oh my gosh, like, I am a single mom, and I cannot get a job, and that's the social studies teachers. I'm a really good teacher, in case anybody watches this and wants to hire me. Just kidding. I can't get a job as a social studies teacher. And it's like, and God might not come through for me because God is dead. So I'm in charge of that. And if I can't make it work, it's over. So that's really rough. I had a friend say second death of loved ones was really hard for her when she left the church. Because when her grandparents had died, she was sad, but in her head she said, I'll see them again someday in heaven. And so when she deconstructed that belief, she was like, I am never seeing my grandma again. She's dead again. And that's really hard. I'm going to die someday. That's pretty rough. Like, that. I was 30 years old when I realized I was going to die someday. It's rough. Most kids do that when they're like 7 or 8. Yeah, it's rough. You guys feel bad for those 7-year-olds. Yeah, lots of community, all that stuff. Another big one was, why did I have children? Again, in my church, I was told that my job was to just make babies forever. Eternity, in fact. I could spend my life in heaven as a pregnant woman. That's a lot of diapers. But is that my entire identity was about the fact that I was supposed to get married and have kids. And so I did. I got married and had a bunch of kids. And then I was like, oh, crap. Like, I actually am not a big fan of humanity. So, why did I have kids? I like them. I'm not getting rid of them. But that is a big problem that people struggle with. It's just like, wow, now I've really screwed up and I can't go back. It's much too late. Okay, so this is what deconstruction looked like for me personally. It involved a lot of tattoos, because those were not allowed in the Mormon church. My first 2 tattoos are cover-ups and oops, tattoos. Like that one. It's my wedding ring, you guys, don't worry about it. Deconstruction, I blogged a lot. I learned a lot about coffee that I didn't know. You guys, it's great. It's reaching for things to believe in. That's what my bowl of water with rocks is. As I tried out different religions and I was trying to figure out, what brings me peace, what helps me, believe that everything's going to be okay. I don't know. I got really into tarot. I moved states, cried in my car. Wrote a lot of angry blogs. I maybe went out drinking and got brown out drunk just so that I could know what that experience was like. Thank you. Like, we do dumb stuff because we want to know, what is it? I've never done that. Think of every dumb thing you did growing up and then do it in your 30s. That's what deconstruction looks like, and it's rough. So, lingering beliefs and habits. So deconstruction is something that doesn't happen like that. There's still things that we hold on to. I remember one of my early conversations with my mom is when she was just on her way out the door of the church. I was out, and she was saying, but I won't shop on Sundays. And I was like, Mom, people who work on Sundays want to work on Sundays. Like, I don't think you understand that you're not keeping the Sabbath day holy for no reason. Like, anyway, it's just there's random things that are still problematic. There's words and phrases. Someone told me I was clean today, and I was like, every whit was my reply, and I was like, yeah, no one gets that except the Mormons, but she laughed, so it's fine. There's just little triggering things that happen that, like, no one else gets. There's discomfort around swearing. I've had a really hard time with people who use the F word. Not because I think it's wrong, but just because in my mind, like, if I heard a swear word instantly, it was like, that one's maybe one we need to be careful around. Just be careful around that one. And it's like, there's no reason to be careful around people who say the F word, but it's still intrinsically in my body that I'm like, be careful. They're not nice, maybe. Some of us get temple symbols tattooed on ourselves. It's complicated, you guys. So situations involving expected conformity can be really, really tricky for people who are leaving situations like this. I know many people who will get up and leave a room if it's like, we're going to have a drum circle. It's like, no, we're not with me. Like, so it's like, nope. So, because it's triggering. It's really triggering because some of us were put in rooms where we were not given informed consent about what would happen in that room. And we promised to do some pretty horrible things. And we were not given consent. So there's things that still come up as triggering. For me, it's this. This is my name tag here. Because I have a muscle memory for that one. I was going to say, I don't know if you noticed, I will always wear my name tag on this shoulder because I don't have that muscle memory. So, yeah, so it's just little things will trigger you that you wouldn't even think about. So it's putting on my name tag. Yeah. Now I'm business. Now I'm representing the Lord. Okay. This is not just me. There's a great video there. A gentleman explains, what he's still deconstructing 5 years later, looking at our own worldview as the exclusive path to moral behavior. That's pretty tough because you're like, I know what's right. Wow. That's really hard to get rid of. Just saying. Asceticism is a necessity for long-term happiness. Just discipline. Maybe that's not true. Emotional ties to the in-group protecting narratives. So that's a big one for me. Is if I do something that would have been sinful and something bad happens in my life, all my Mormons will say, it's because you sinned. Like, you asked for it. There's things that people will say and believe about my life that I can't control, but it makes it really, really difficult to have relationships with these people because you know that they have stories that they're telling themselves about you and your place with God, which is great. So, how to support those deconstructing. This is a nail in my hand. So I had, you see? Okay. It's a bolt. I don't even know the difference between a bolt and a nail. It's because I'm a Mormon. It's not. It's because I'm stupid. So I had a BYU, Idaho class of whatever, just like graduating from university. I had one of those things on my license plate. See, I am smart. It was just like showing off with the university that I went to, which was a religious university. And so when I decided that I was pretty sick of it, I was like, I'm going to take that off of my license plate because I don't want to advertise Mormonism anymore. That's not what I want to do. So I remember getting out in my garage with a nail, or a screwdriver, bolt. And so I remember getting out there with a screwdriver and trying to take the bolts off so I could remove this license plate frame. And it would not come off. I couldn't get it. And so I did like the rubber band trick with the screwdriver. Nothing. It wouldn't come off. And I had a neighbor who happened to be outside at the moment. And he said he could see me struggling. And I was like, I guess I just have to keep Mormonism forever. Aww. Like, it was rough. And he saw me outside and he said, oh no, we're going to take care of that. And so he got out a Dremel, thank you. He got out a Dremel and he dremeled it. He done dremeled it and he got that thing off. And I was like, yeah. So that was the kindest thing anyone could have done for me in that moment. I love Dremels. But it's like, it was beautiful. I still have that bolt because it was such an important moment for me to realize, like, this meant nothing to him and it meant the world to me. So there were nasty things, that I was clinging onto, to extra baggage that I couldn't get rid of, and someone helped me get rid of it. Super easy, not a big deal for him. He probably felt really manly, and that was good for him. So, how are we going to interact with people who are deconstructing on a daily basis? Because not everyone is ex-Mormon. So what are some other things that people believe, that they believe are truth? I have a few examples. Crystals, ghosts, aliens. I do believe in those. That makes me unpopular. It's okay. Some people believe in God. Some people believe in country music. And bless their hearts. Some people have different political beliefs that they believe in. Some people, this influencing factors, that's one that I've even seen in the American Ethical Union, is that we Sometimes people will have beliefs about what causes things. Is it genetic? Is it biological? Is it learned? Doesn't matter, but there are people who will have beliefs that we personally don't agree with that might be unpopular, right? So, how do we deal with that when people believe things that we maybe don't agree with? So, that's how you're going to meet these people. At this time, I forgot I had this slide. So you guys read The God Virus in book club? Oh, yeah. So I got a quote. Non-believers have figured out there's no second coming, but there may be an apocalypse of viral stupidity, which is super kind, but that phrase is going to trigger a persecution complex in someone who's deconstructing, because they're going to buckle down and decide to stay Mormon for 2 extra months because of that quote. Like, that's not the attitude that helps people leave a group. And it's something like we on the other side are like, absolutely, but it doesn't help people who are still leaving. Instead, I prefer more of a Mr. Rogers approach, where it's all of us need help. Everyone has something valuable to bring. So there's a big difference with the attitude with which we approach people who maybe have unpopular beliefs or things that they're still holding on to. There's a big difference in the attitude that we can use with them to help them. This is a big reason that I joined the Ethical Union, and this is our SEEK core values. This is what the kids do all the time. Every person is important and unique. Every person deserves to be treated fairly and kindly. I can learn from everyone. That was huge for me. And so, that would just be my last thought, my last invitation is considering how can we help everyone to feel welcome in our space. And obviously there's standards that we are not going to draw a line on, is like we're not going to be mean to people. We're not cool with that. But how can we help people? Because the world as it is right now, we're going to see a lot more people like me coming out of rigid belief systems, where they're like, wow, I guess if you support a judge, maybe you're not right. But we're going to see people coming out of these belief systems, and it's going to be hard for them. They're going to have a very hard time leaving what they believe is true. And how can we work with them in a patient, kind, empathetic way, where we can say, maybe they believe XYZ that I don't like, that I don't agree with, that seems pretty mean to me, but how can we help them grow to a space with us? So, because we believe that everyone is important. And how do we make that happen? So, that was my closing thought on that. So, anyway, thank you very much.
Girl! I know, I think I'm gonna like reveal my I know you